Hello and welcome. My name's Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. So I have another exciting product release for you today, and that is Sublimation Paint from Artesprix. Now this goes on sale in May. I have it now to test it, shoot videos, that type of thing, and I must say that I am loving this paint. So perhaps you don't have a sublimation printer and you want to give sublimation a try. Perhaps you're an artist and you want to paint your own designs and add them to various surfaces with sublimation. You want to get the kids involved in sublimation, number 3, with tons of projects that they can paint and then you can transfer to different surfaces. Or number 4, you just love the idea of playing with some paint and putting it on all kinds of sublimation blanks. Whichever one applies to you, this video is for you. So the sublimation paint comes in 4 colors, plus a white lightning medium. So let's talk about the white just a second. You cannot sublimate white ink. Doesn't exist. There is no such thing as white sublimation ink. However, they wanted a way for you to be able to mix different colors with the 4 primary colors. And the way to do that is with white. So this is just a lightning medium. It lightens the other colors. You can't just sublimate the white by itself. The other 4 colors are blue, yellow, red that looks pink, and black that looks purple. So just like regular sublimation, these colors look differently when you paint them, and then after you press them, add that heat, they really pop. So they really come to life after the pressing process. Now, with these colors, you can mix a ton of different colors. So whatever you would like to mix, you could definitely mix it with these. There's also a mixing chart on the Artesprix website if you want some color combinations and some formulas for mixing these paints. Now, I wanted to put them to the test, make a few projects, so I grabbed some paper. What kind of paper do you need? So I do recommend something that's thicker than copy paper. So with the Artesprix Sublimation markers, you can use copy paper for your projects. With this, I do recommend something a little bit thicker just because it's paint, it's wet, it is water-based, so you could use them as watercolors, and you definitely don't want your paint deteriorating, ripping, that type of thing. So I do recommend something a little bit stiffer than copy paper. So I used just like some white cardstock. I used watercolor paper on one of mine. I do think you could use sublimation paper, but it's really not necessary. You don't have to have sublimation paper. So if you have some other kind of thicker paper around, you could definitely use that with the Artesprix Sublimation paints. Then you can use any paintbrush. This is paint. It may be sublimation paint, but it is still just paint. So you can use any paintbrushes that you have on hand, and you can just start going crazy. So how I started is I put each of the colors onto a paint palette and then just sort of like played around, started mixing things, seeing how things worked, and then just started adding those to my paper. So I did a few different papers, some of which I planned on putting on a coaster, so I traced the coasters first, and then I just started adding some lines, some dashes, some dots. I mean, just randomly putting different effects on the paper just so I could see what the final results were after I sublimated on them. So I do feel like playing around with this paint will help you know exactly what it'll do. So plan to play around with it a little bit, even on polyester fabric, and it would give you an idea of how the paints work before you actually get started. Now you do need to let this paint dry before you sublimate it. I let it dry overnight because that was convenient for me, but I do think you could use a blow dryer to speed up the process. One of the prints I made, I kind of splattered the paint all over the paper. The paint was thicker in that case, which was intentional. So I wanted it to be thicker to see if that would sublimate and how that would work. So that print probably took a little bit longer to dry because I had huge globs of paint. So the thicker the paint that you put on the paper, the longer it will take to dry before you can sublimate on it. But you could use a blow dryer to speed up the drying process, or even take your heat press, hover it over the surface, put your print there, and just let it sit under the heat press for a few seconds to let that heat speed up that drying process. And then I like pastels and lighter colors, so I started mixing even more white into my paint and applying it to different paper in different ways. Now, you can go abstract and do super abstract designs. If you're an artist, you can paint landscapes, you could paint flowers. Whatever you want to paint, you can use the sublimation paint to do it and then transfer it to those polyester coated surfaces. So this paint works the same as any sublimation ink. So once it's on that paper, it dries, it now is a sublimation print. You can now put it onto sublimation blanks, and you do need a polyester coating to do that. So if you're talking about fabric, at least 65% polyester. If you were talking about hard blanks, you will want those to be listed as sublimation blanks because those have a poly coating that will react with the sublimation paint in this case and make the print permanent once it's pressed. And finally, I couldn't resist. I had to add some water to this paint and give like a watercolor effect. So these are water-based paints, so you can water them down, add them to watercolor paper, make a really cool watercolor effect on your paper, and then transfer that super cool watercolor effect to your blank. So me personally, I love watercolor prints and watercolor art, so these paints are perfect for that given that they're water-based. And the cleanup on this, because it's water-based, is super easy. So I just cleaned up everything with some water, rinsed it in the sink, and I was done with the paintbrushes as well as the palette. So once these are dry, it is time to press. Now, once they're dry, it is just like any other sublimation print. So you follow the time and temperature for your blank. Doesn't have anything to do with the type of sublimation you're putting on it. You don't have to change the time, you don't have to change the temperature. So as always, look on your blank and find your time and temperature. Then it's time to add your print. So in this case, I cut the print into pieces, added it, of course, ink side down onto my coasters, which I cleaned with a lint roller. Once I had them in place, I taped them down well. And it is important to add protective paper to both sides. You don't know how much of this ink is going to blow out and how much might be on your paper, especially if you're doing splatter painting, where it could be on your paper, like it could be anywhere. So be sure you cover the entire paper with protective paper, both on the front as well as the back. And then it's time to press. Just head to your heat press, time and temperature of the blank, and of course, watch your pressure. That should be indicated on the blank as well, and press the blank with all those recommendations in mind. Now, I continued on after the coasters, and I did some more blanks as well. I had to do some fabric, so I went ahead and did a headband with that. I did a phone case, so a metal piece that goes in a phone case, and then I did a plastic cutting board. So I wanted a wide variety of blanks to see how the ink would react on each. So the coasters are hard board or hard wood. The headband is a fabric. The phone case is metal, and the cutting board is plastic. And so after I make all of these, I should know kind of how the paint will react on each surface and get a good idea of projects that I want to make in the future. So after pressing, you just remove your sublimation print. So remove it from the heat press. You might want to wear heat resistant gloves for some of these because they may be hot. And then remove the protective paper as well as the sublimation print and any tape. These are permanent as soon as you remove that paper. There's nothing else you need to do. No sealer, no anything. It is a sublimation craft at this point. So I can repeat and do this for the rest of my blanks as well. I love how the headband turned out with that splatter effect. For the phone case, if you don't know how to assemble a phone case, so you take off the protective paper, take off the sublimation print, and then you peel back the adhesive that's on the phone case itself and pop the metal piece inside. So now let's take a closer look at how some of these turned out so you can see how great these paints really pop once you press them. So the square coasters, I did a variety of effects on those. So I wanted to play around with different brush strokes and see how they looked. And these paints had very little white mixed in to see just how bright and dark I could get my colors. And I am thrilled with the way these turned out. And I love the way that these look like they're painted on, but it's embedded into this material. So it feels completely smooth, but it looks painted. Then on the headband, you can see that splatter paint effect. All I did was splatter the paint, literally, all over a piece of paper and then press it to this 100% polyester headband, and it definitely looks amazing. For the phone case, you start to see that watercolor effect, which personally I really love. I do think you could do a lot with watercolor and these paints. And then I also used a piece of the watercolor print on the cutting board, so it's a different piece of the same paper. So painting this over a large area, over a large piece of paper, and then using it for several smaller crafts is a great way to get the most use out of your paints. I will say these paints go a really long way. So when I started, I added quite a bit to my paint palette, and then I found like I had tons of paint left over even though I was kind of done painting. So I just kept going and just kept adding that paint to prints. Like I didn't want to waste any of the paint. So I painted as much as possible onto paper, and then I can save those papers for later and press them at any point in time when I'm ready to make a project. And finally, we have this round coaster, and with this one, I kind of wanted to show you the change in color. The paper is similar to the one I painted and pressed the round coaster with, and you can see just how much those colors change and just how much they pop after being heated. So you will want to play around with these paints and see how much the color changes before you do your final project, because you might get a surprise once you peel back that paper. So I am thrilled with the projects I made with these paints, and I can't wait to make more. There's like so much you can do with these. And I wasn't expecting to love the paints this much, I'll just be honest. But I actually love the way everything turned out. And the painting is so much fun. And then you can put it on something and it's permanent, you know, right when you peel that paper off, which is kind of amazing, right? So normally you would paint something, maybe you wanted to paint a coaster and you had to paint it, then add layers of epoxy or layers of decoupage. No more of that. Paint it, sublimate it on, get the look of paint, but the permanency of sublimation, all with these sublimation paints. So now, I need to know if you have any questions about the sublimation paint, please ask those in the comment section below. If you liked this video, if it helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and you don't want to miss any of those. I will drop links to all the supplies I used in the description below. If you're on computer, click show more. If you're on mobile, swipe up on the video or click the arrow to expand the description. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.